Hello, hello, hello. Wow, September is stacked with games. This is one hell of a month, some heavy hitters and some outrageously hilarious games. But after this meager summer, it's great to see that the start of autumn can deliver. I have 16 games to show you, but I wanted to mention 3 to start with. I've talked about these 3 in previous videos, as they were supposed to release earlier this year. So I won't do a full presentation of these games, but I wanted to mention them at least. The first one is I Am Your Beast. It was supposed to release 15th of August. It will now release on September 10th. I love the demo for this game, a truly hilarious game. The second one is Bridgeway. It was supposed to release 30th of August. It will now release on September 26th. To me, it looks like it could be one of the better roguelikes dropping this year. And then we also have Frostpunk 2. It was supposed to drop 25th of July. It will now release on September 20th. This is one of the games I look forward to the most this year. It looks amazing. But okay, on to the other interesting games releasing in September. First up is Numata. I think that's how you say it at least. This is a horror game that mixes psychological horror with survival game aspects. You are also a detective, so there will be a fair bit of crime scenes that needs to be investigated and solved. The graphics are really good in this game. I think graphic does a lot for a horror game, more than any other genre I would say, as it will add a lot more to the tension and the creepiness of the monsters, and you can make the atmosphere look so much more real. The game looks to have a lot of different enemies, seems to be some decent enemy design here, and you'll do a lot of fighting and surviving, or hiding as well. It's supposedly a very scary game, but it feels like every horror game says that to bring in the people, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. But I do like the overall premise and that there is some detective work to do in the game as well. Developed by Deadbolt Interactive. Next up is Perennial Order. This is an action adventure with focus on boss battles. Personally, I have never been the biggest fan of this art style or graphical choice, but it really lends itself to some amazing atmosphere and world building. The combat looks to have some intensity to it, looks challenging, and you play it with twin stick controls, so that's kind of interesting for a melee game. The game can also be played in co-op, love that. I wonder if there will be a rebalancing for 2 players, or if the game is just going to be easier. The game also supports remote play together, so only one have to buy the game and you can play it in co-op. The game's visuals is inspired by Dark Souls and Princess Mononoke. Both of those are amazing creations, and I mean Princess Mononoke have some excellent monster and animal design. Same goes for the Dark Souls series, and on top of that you have some top tier environmental design. The 2D graphical choice here do come close to the Dark Souls series for me. You really get that dark, gritty world, so there might be something here. Developed by Garden Fiend Games, release is planned for 6th of September. Next up we have What the Car. Yeah, this is truly a silly game, but it looks like a lot of fun to me. The game is all about racing with hundreds of levels, but how you race in this game is another thing completely. You seem to race in all manner of different ways, except the conventional one. But I do love games like these, just crazy outrageous stuff all the way through, at least from what it looks like. And I mean, they have truly let their imagination run wild with this one. There seems to be some exploration as well with a world map, and from there I think you choose the levels you want to go into. But yeah, doesn't get crazier than this. Developed by Triband, release is planned for 9th of September. Then we have Selfloss. I just love the art style of this game. A minimalistic style, but so much character. Reminds me a bit of Tunic. You play as Casimir, who sets out on a journey to heal his soul. With you, you have a magical staff that plays in heavily with the mechanics in the game, as you can control it by itself or have it with you. You use it for basically everything from fighting to solving puzzles. The game has a big focus on exploration as well. You will do a lot of traveling via boat. The staff comes into play there as well to guide you. And the game's world is inspired by Slavic culture with whale gods and all manner of interesting encounters. Can't wait to play this one, it looks amazing to me. Developed by Goodwin Games, release is planned for 12th of September. Next up is Hollow Body, a survival horror game. It feels a lot like a combination between Silent Hill and the Resident Evil franchise. And that isn't too far off, as it is inspired by horror games from the early 2000s. The game is described as a short story where you play as Micah, who goes out to the exclusion zone to look for her missing partner. As it is a survival horror game, you will have to manage limited resources. It's a narrative focused game, but there seems to be plenty of horrific creatures and puzzles to solve. I'm personally not that much for horror games, but this looks great. I hope the story is good as well and not too predictable. Developed by Headwear Games, release is planned for 12th of September as well. Next up is Stardiver. This is basically a flight game underwater. It is an action game as well as an exploration game. It has some sort of base building aspect to it, but it might just be for upgrades to your ship. Or you will establish a base or take over an old one as you explore, and as you explore you will also try to figure out why it was abandoned. As I mentioned, you'll do a lot of upgrades to improve your ship. I wonder how bananas this system will go, and if you can change the design and everything around the ship as well. And I really like that you can play the game in first person, and I mean this game would have been so cool in VR as well. But I just hope the combat is good and that the exploration is interesting as well, and I hope they go nuts with insane monsters to fight. Developed by Green Planet Games, release is planned for 12th of September as well. Next up is Wild Bastards, an FPS roguelike with some really nice cel-shaded graphics. This is a spiritual successor to the studio's previous game, Void Bastards, that looks and plays very similarly. Here you get to play 13 different outlaws as they travel between planets. All of the outlaws have their own playstyle, which include weaponry, special powers, and a skill tree. I love that they've gone for a kind of a neon aesthetic to the game, and that it's overall kind of a simple looking game. And the same goes for kind of the gameplay and the execution, and I don't expect this to be the hardest game ever. There seems to be a fair bit of strategy in choosing which outlaw you should play, as galactic sectors and planets are procedurally generated, and things like gravity, terrain features and weather will vary. I expect enemies will vary as well, but different outlaws might be better at different types of encounters and might be more suited for different environments. After you've completed the campaign, you will also unlock a challenge mode. This might be the most interesting part for me, as the game will increase in difficulty and you will have mutators and modifiers to change up the experience a bit. Developed by Blue Manchu, release is also planned for 12th of September. 4 games in the same day. Fuck. Then we have Demon School. I am a sucker for turn-based RPGs, and this one have an interesting take on it. It's kind of a chess game combined with turn-based combat as you fight demons. You'll have a few characters all with their different moves, and each round you plan out your moves, and then you enter the action phase and watch it all play out. The game's story revolves around a bunch of students at a university, so I think you'll have like a Persona-like experience during the day and fight demons during the night or something similar to that. I hope the story is interesting. I think the game will fall on that, and then that the combat keeps being interesting all the way through. I don't want it to be too repetitive or stale halfway through. This one is developed by Necrosoft Games, release is planned for 13th of September. Then we have Evotinction. This is a third-person stealth game. Feels a bit like a simplified Deus Ex game, but without the combat. It's set in the future where a rogue AI have taken over a lab and threatens the survival of the human race. It's not the most interesting premise, but hopefully it evolves a bit during the game. The game is all about hacking and making a way through the facility, and I think the hacking aspect could be cool. I just hope they have done this in an interesting way and a new way. You play as a researcher with no combat training, so I'm gonna assume that means none to very little gunplay. I hope you might hack robots that you can use, but otherwise you wanna stay out of the way. I think this game could be really cool, like stealth shooters or stealth games aren't that prevalent, so nice to see one of those. Developed by Spikewave Games, release is planned for 13th of September. Next up is Lucky Tower Ultimate. Yeah, so this is one of those silly games again. A roguelite adventure game that have embraced slapstick humor, and I think you either love this or hate it. But for me it's so silly and so dumb, I kind of love it. It features hand-drawn aesthetics and have really managed to capture the old flashy rogue games. I wonder if the game will be too easy or if the unexpected will get you often. The levels are randomly generated, so hopefully that works well and that you get some interesting levels. Beside the silly traps and deaths, there is combat as well, and almost anything in the game can be used as a weapon. You have companions as well, but you have to be careful so you don't accidentally make them mad and they'll attack you. There is also meta progression when you die and an end game, so that sounds good. It drops into early access 13th of September, but the game is fully playable. The developers will spend a year adding more of everything into the game while the game is in early access. Developed by Studio Sufs. Next up we have Edge of Sanity, a survival horror game in 2D. I'm getting getting some serious The Thing vibes from this game, as you are in Alaska in a field lab. Here it all takes a dark turn as eldritch horrors show up. As you try to escape, you will have to manage your crew, their morale, resources. Then you also have a madness function affecting your mind and sense of reality. It does introduce new crafting items and dialogue, so it could be a cool balancing act here. Resources are limited, so crafting and finding interesting ways to fight is essential. You will also have to make difficult choices. I don't know exactly what that means, but hopefully you will have some tough choices when managing your crew or where to go and stuff like that. Developed by Vixa Games, releases planned for 13th of September. Crap, 3 games on the 13th as well. Oh boy. Next up is The Plucky Squire. Finally, I can soon play this game. I've also looked forward to this one for a long time. I think this one looks great. Might be a bit childish, but the imagination and variety is certainly impressive. In The Plucky Squire, you play a book character coming to life, literally jumping out of the pages. The game's structure is a pretty standard action-adventure game, but the main character here gets kicked out of the book and must now restore the book to its happy ending. The story might not be the most interesting part, but the variety in gameplay is amazing, or looks amazing. And you also have these kind of cool puzzles that requires you to go between the book and the third person aspect in order to solve certain things. It's kind of cool. But yeah, can't wait to play this one. Developed by All Possible Futures, release is planned for 17th of September. Then we have Sushusis. This one is creepy but kinda cool. It's a horror game where you play as a zookeeper, trying to identify and cure mutated animals. As a zookeeper, you need to take care of the animals, and as you take care of them, you realize that something is wrong with them, and you will have to figure out what caused the infection in order to cure the animals. You will also get different endings depending upon your choices. I do really like the idea here and the premise, and I think this could be like a sleeper hit, like a really cool game, and I so hope it's executed well. Developed by Clapperheads, release is planned for 23rd of September. Next we have Tiny Glade. I just love these games that is basically pretty building games. You just chill and let your imagination flow. Summer House were another one that had gorgeous graphics and just chill gameplay. And Tiny Glade is kind of the same. The focus here is on building castles, and to do that you have some cool and interesting tools for building. Just dragging out walls looks so satisfying. Changing the ground underneath the castle and seeing the castle adapt to that is also really cool. And everything feels like it's made to be able to play and build with ease. And then the graphics, such a cozy vibe to this game. Developed by Lite, release is planned for 23rd of September. Next up is Rusty Rabbit. This is a 2D action-adventure game where you play as a rabbit named Stamp. Humankind have abandoned Earth and rabbits have become the dominant species. The humans of course left a lot of stuff, and within Smokestack Mountain there seems to be much you can salvage. The story seems to be revolving around digging into this mountain, and you pilot a mech with a lot of capabilities. As you progress and collect materials, you can upgrade the mech. I think the story and setting is very cute and kind of interesting. There looks to be a lot of fun characters in the game, so I think this could be a really enjoyable game. Developed by Nitro Plus, release is planned for 24th of September. This month is insane, and I think it could be one of the best months this year when it comes to indie games. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.